listen to this podcast, or I'll gut you.
Welcome back, Horror Hounds, to Ghostman and Rivera's Horror Show podcast.
I'm Mike Ghostman Pickle.
And I'm James Rivera. Today we have Ronnie Gene Blevins on the podcast, a star in the upcoming The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. Ronnie's had an incredible acting career as a character actor. He's worked with David Lynch. He's worked with Christopher Nolan. How many credits does he have, Michael?
117 acting credits and 14 horror films.
And 14 horror.
Yeah,
films.
man.
So
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. I feel grateful. You know, I really do. I really do. It's been a cool little convergence of projects coming out on June 4th. You know, I got a film that I produced. It comes out on June 4th. I got The Conjuring 4th, comes out on June 4th. Got this other movie I did, Feral State, and I feel like, yeah, you know, every now and again it happens like that. There's some momentum, and I feel stoked, man. I feel honored, especially coming out of the pandemic. You know, it's just
So
been brutal.
when did you realize that you'd wanted to be an actor? You wanted to be in films?
Well, I was making little films when I was like in 6th, 7th grade. My parents got me one of those little camcorders that it would have the VHS recorder right in it, you know, and then you could take it out and watch what you're doing. I mean, obviously we weren't doing any editing. We were kind of like shooting in sequence, and whatever we got. And I was using my little brother as the actor, and I was directing. So we'd make films like Attack of the Killer Guinea Pig, and use my guinea pig, you know, and you know, but it was always something in Texas. It was never something that I felt like was an available option for me to kind of go into. It just seemed like something that some people far away were anointed to do. You know what I mean? I never even considered it, you know. And then, you know, from my perspective, I was always told, okay, you got to go to college and you can do what you want to do. So I went to university, and then, you know, I never really understood the weight of what you did for a living, how much that would affect your happiness, you know? So I just kind of rushed through college as an attempt to get out. And I went to work at 21. I went to work for a mutual fund company. And then it was like, that Peggy Lee song. This is it. Like, this is life. I was like, oh, this is a bummer, you know? So I got depressed, and then, and you know, and one day I quit that job. I went and traveled through Europe. And then I just kind of had this inclination, but it's not like I was a theater kid, you know. I just had this inclination in Europe that I was going to move to Los Angeles and try to be an actor. And I did that. And I probably moved out when I was 22. And I tell you, and the greatest thing I did, I don't know. I don't have any good, it wasn't like an aspiration I did. I just know when I look back, I was dabbling with filmmaking, you know what I'm saying? And then when I got out to Los Angeles, the smartest thing I could have done was, I didn't have any expectations. You know, I didn't give myself like some sort of time limit. I was like, you know what, I'm going to just kind of hang out in acting class and learn and, you know, get a little side hustle. And that's what I did for the next like 7-8 years until I started working. And you know, I've had like a steady trajectory ever since, you know? So,
yeah. Since you started acting, it seems like you get bigger and bigger parts each time. So tell us a little bit about your rise through the ranks, and if it ever got so hard that you wanted to give up.
Yeah, you know, I think as far as it getting hard, well, absolutely, you know, but you know, I feel like a pursuit and acting, or a pursuit and really in the business we're in, it's like people tend to weed themselves out quickly. So it's like if it's really suited for you, then you find it's almost like in your blood. And and it's like good news and bad news. The good news is that you can never quit because you're so fed by it. But the bad news is you can never quit. You know what I mean? So of course there has been, but I've had one of these situations where I would, I would get something and it would just feed me enough to hang on, and I was, I guess what you would call typecast early on in my career as the, the bad guy, the creepers and whatnot. And, I had spent my first 8 years out here just being no cast. So I was like, okay, well, being typecast is not a bad thing. And I had always just kind of had the perspective of, well, like, all you have to do is just hit a grand slam inside your typecasting. So I would use the models like Peter Sarsgaard and Boys Don't Cry, and that would always be my kind of my goal, was to find that one role that I could crush inside of my casting, and then the hope would be that maybe they would let me do other things, and that's kind of what I've done, and I think that there's a couple. I have been able to evolve past that a little bit. I think some of that comes with age, and some of that comes with being a dad. Me and my wife, who you guys know, we had our son Leo in 2016. I think when you have a kid, there becomes this you develop this love and this layer of empathy, and I think it almost creates this extra dimension of like this just extra layer. I could almost say it softens you a little bit. So I think it's easier to after you've had a kid to delve into some of these parts that aren't so so bad, and I don't know what that's an element of, but since we've had Leo, I've found that, if there's a spectrum of bad guys, I find that I'm kind of at times my spectrum of bad guy has been a little closer to sinner, but
Yeah.
As far as the evolution, I think that the evolution stems from just being in this business for over 20 years. You have producers and casting directors that they kind of, in some ways, they come up with you, they grow with you. You know what I mean? Sometimes you get parts, sometimes you don't get parts, but even when you don't get parts, sometimes you're so close that it's almost a better currency, because you don't get the part, but you do so well, and then all of a sudden you become high priority for them to get you another work. So just kind of, Jerry Seinfeld always had this great line, which I like. He said, I was never a better comic than anyone else. I just never got out of line. And I kind of feel how that way. I kind of just stayed, but it doesn't mean I didn't over the years, need to like try to hustle up some extra money, or try to get some side hustle or some supplemental income, but I will say that I've been fortunate enough these last I would say 7 years to have our income stem solely from acting. So I count my blessings for that.
Earlier you
That's
mentioned
great.
that you mentioned that once you're kind of in the business you're in, and you met your wife Veronica Burgess, who's a lovely person on
Yeah.
set. So do you think it makes it a little bit easier to maintain this career when your partner is in the same industry and you have somewhat similar goals?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're just a couple of artists that's built this family of artists.
Mhm.
I mean, even during the pandemic, when we weren't able to go work, I mean, we were just kind of buckling down and always creating something, whether it's writing or or painting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's 180 degrees different than the childhood I had, you know, but we kind of developed this family of artists, you know, so it's just, you know, it's just, yeah, I couldn't even, it's hard to imagine not being married to an artist. I'm sure that has its benefits too. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? But I can tell you from my perspective, because she gets it, and she also knows, you know, she knows the ebbs and she knows the flows because she experiences them herself. And and now in the culture of there's no in-person auditions, that everyone's just putting auditions down on tape. And Veronica's also a fantastic actor, so she's there to help me. It's just kind of like yeah, the it's just what we do, you know what I mean? It's what we do. It's no longer, it's not to do or not to do, it's how to navigate through, because we're artists and we're always going to be artists. And that's kind of what we're teaching Leo, you know, not to say Leo's our son, of course, but not to say we're pushing him to be, he can be whatever he wants to be, but whatever it is, whether he's you know, an architect, a doctor, or you know, a trash man, I would like to think that we're trying to impart to him that it should be done from from a place of artistry. You know what I mean? That's a kind of a rambling answer, but yeah, I think it is easier, you know, to be married to an actor.
How do you approach the different wide-ranging emotions that you have to go through? Like you do a lot of horror movies, and then you also have a lot of dramas and even some comedies. So
Yeah.
is there a big difference in the way you approach each type of movie, each type of role?
I think that there's sometimes a fine line between drama and comedy, first off, because, you know, I think Nate Cage is one of one of my favorite actors. He's fantastic. But even when he's being doing like a role that's 100% suited in drama, I feel like laughing. You know what I mean? It's like, I think sometimes, you know, but I try to I try to break everything down in context of the scene. You know what I mean? And not look at not look at a script as a whole. You know what I mean? So sometimes I think there can be some great comedic moments and great comedic scenes and drama, and some solid dramatic moments, and even a broadest of comedies. And I think if you're allowing yourself to rehearse inside of and be responsive to the impulses, no matter where on the spectrum they come from, then you are setting yourself up for a very human performance and a very well-rounded performance, you know?
Mhm.
And as far as how do I tap into the different emotionalities, you know, it's oftentimes, if the writing is good enough, the text allows, you know, is the text is feeds me enough as to where I don't have to do anything beyond the that which is the inspires the imagination inside of the text. And other times, for whatever reason, I'm not getting enough from the text, and I can draw from something in my personal life.
You're in a lot of horror movies. Is there something that draws you to the genre, or do you are you a fan of horror?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of horror. I believe in the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some strange things happen to me, and so so you know, I like a good scare. You know what I mean? I like to see how the extent to which I can, just as a consumer, as a watcher. You know, I love, you know, like Exorcism. You know, the Exorcism of, what is it? The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah.
You know, I like possession movies. Damien. You know, I like movies. There's something about when a kid gets possessed, man. It freaks me out. You know. you know, and you just put like a young girl in a dress and have her down a hall just looking at you like that, and I'm just done. I'm like, ah, you know. So just like anything, just like it, you know, my draw to horror would be just like my draw to the whole business in general. It's I think I am such a consumer and such a love. I have such a love as a consumer and as a watcher that at a certain point, my love and excitement for the genre grows so much. I'm like, okay, how can I be more of an active participant? So yeah, so I was able to do it, you know, and earlier on I kind of got my, I cut my chops on some real C level movies like I can't even remember, like Charles Band type stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And then I got a chance to do a movie Within, which was a film that Warner Brothers did with New Line a few years ago. And I had worked with Peter Safran on that, and it turns out Peter Safran, you know, produces all the Conjuring movies, and thankfully they asked me to be a part of the new Conjuring 3, which I'm very excited about, you know, because that has like that, you know, you can see from the trailer that starts off with the possession of the boy, you know.
I really like the film that you did in 2013. It's a found footage film called The Hunted. It's written and directed by actor Josh Stewart from the Collector films.
Yeah.
And you also worked with him later in The Neighbor, and you also worked on his second film, Back Fork, in 2009. So I thought in The Hunted, you guys had a very good chemistry together. How did you end up working with him so much?
Josh has been a buddy of mine for like the last 20 years. When he first moved out here right around the same time I did, which was probably 21 years ago. And we were both working at the Standard in Hollywood, and just good buddies. And then one day, this must have been 2004. He, you know, we would always be running our audition sides and whatnot, and at work. And then one day he's like, "Hey, man, I just got a series regular," and he moved to New York and got on Third Watch. So he was kind of the first of us to just really ascend. And then, you know, we kind of kept in touch. And then years later, I think we both did The Dark Knight Rises, and we were in Pittsburgh together, and we hung out, and we kind of rekindled our friendship. I mean, we were always buddies, but, you know, we kind of got close again. And from there, you know, he started writing, and he would just kind of ask me to be involved with him, which was awesome. The Hunted was really kind of a terrifying movie, and it was a hard experience because we were shooting in West Virginia, and it was kind of loosely based on something that had happened to him. And we were shooting in a holler, and so with some of these hollers in West Virginia, you can't see the sky, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like it's always dark, and you can't see the sky. It has this kind of real foreboding type of it's just something about it wasn't jiving with me, you know, which was good because it was good for the character, because I had to play a guy that was kind of going out there and just getting freaked out, you know. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, it's these two guys that are it's a hunting show, really, and these two guys are looking for this big deer. And I'm filming. It's a found footage thing, and instead we come across this like terrifying demon, I guess, which you never even see, which is, you know, which was unique in its own way. But so yeah, man. So that was a hard experience for me. But he's my bro, and he put me in some of his movies, and he's such a great director and a really great actor too, you know.
Well, I personally think that's a very underrated found footage film. It reminded me of Bobcat Goldthwait's Willow Creek, but I think it's actually a lot better.
I got to see that. Is that the one about Bigfoot?
This one was Bigfoot, yeah. And your movie, The Hunted, it seemed like a monster was going to come after them. So it was kind of a nice twist that it was supernatural, and it was pretty scary. That scream, was it recorded on set, or was that put in post? Because that was a pretty frightening scream.
That was post, and Josh's whole concept was, they often say that once you see the monster, that like in Jaws, they I guess because they were having they were having issues with the mechanical shark. So in Jaws, they're using that as a favor because, we fear what we don't see. Right. So his whole thing is, let's just never see the monster. And I, I agree that it's we're, as a consumer, we're imagining all these things, we're imagining what it is. And what the viewer is imagining is far more interesting than anything we can ultimately put into into the image. Now that was just a way we went with that, or a way Josh went with it. Clearly there's filmmakers that are very capable of putting some pretty terrifying shit, and you can't have a bunch of film without images. But that was just kind of the way he wanted to go throughout that movie, and I think it worked. It was bold to never show this thing. You know what I mean? Bold. But hats off to him, man. He's a really smart director, a good writer, and a great actor. And thank you for saying that. I'm a fan of it as well.
You also have a little bit of collaborative history with Richard Bates Jr., who did Tone Deaf and Suburban Gothic.
Yep.
How did this working relationship develop?
I think with Richard, I auditioned for a movie he was going to do called, damn it, what was that called? Oh God, what is it called? Maybe it's called Suburban Gothic, I think. And then he, Richard's great, man. He's just he kind of dabbles in the horror and the comedy. I think he's inspired a lot by John Waters, and so I did his first movie, and he's just like, "Hey, man, I'm going to put you in all my movies," and he has. I think he put me in the second one, and the third one, he just did a movie called King Knight, which is, I believe, going to Fantasia Fest or Fantastic Fest, and that has a really cool cast. It's like it's just a cool cast. Matthew Gray Gubler, who I love, and just some really interesting Andy. And what is it? Andy Milikanakis, is that his name?
Andy
Johnny Pemberton, just a bunch of like quirky dudes. I love Ricky Bates Jr. because he's an absurdist, and he's just a unique, very, very unique guy, so he's cool, man. He's great. He's a smart guy.
Love or hate his movies, they are definitely unique. He has a very singular vision. He has a lot to say about classism, sexism, generation gaps. He has a lot to say about a lot of different things. It always has these complicated protagonists and interacting with bad people that say a lot of, that have a voice. I think that's why some people don't like his style, because he gives the bad people just as much of a voice as he does the good people.
If you ever get a chance, if you want to see something really interesting, his first movie was a movie called Excision.
Okay.
And that had Annalyn McCord in a way that you will never see her. She is so good in this. She's so dark. That's really Excision was the movie, his first movie. It went to Sundance, and that's that's kind of what got him up and running and noticed. I wasn't in Excision, but it's a great film. Trust me, you'll like it. You'll like it, and it's Annalyn McCord is the way how you've never seen her, and she's also really quite brilliant. Really good.
Regarding your next project, coming out June 4th, The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. Were you familiar with the case that this was based on before you took on the project?
I don't think I was, but I got familiar with it. It's such a trip, man. It's the first time in the history of the court system in which a legal defense for a murder suspect claimed possession, right? Yeah. And I mean, there had to be some sort of compelling evidence because the guy only got 5 years. The gentleman that I played, they're using all the like the Glatzels, Debbie Glatzel, they're using all their real names. Okay. The gentleman that I play, we're not using his real name because he obviously he died, and so everyone else kind of has this voice, right? So they can kind of they can be consulted and offer up their version and their perspective of what happened, but because this guy didn't have a voice, they used a different name, and made more of his character a little more fictionalized. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I didn't know it, but man, it sure is fascinating. As is all their cases that James Wan and New Line uses for the Conjuring movies, because when you look it up, it's so they're pulling from some of the great actual possessions and recorded history. So oftentimes you're getting like actual recordings and actual like visual evidence, so it's so interesting, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just wild to me. I'm a huge Conjuring fan. Huge. My wife and I are massive Conjuring fans. Did I ever tell you the story about what happened when I went to shoot The Conjuring?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna sound like a total nutbag here, but
I want to hear it even more.
Well. So true story. Okay. You guys know my son Leo, right?
Yeah.
He's about to turn 5. Okay. Back then, I guess he was 2, maybe 3, maybe I just turned 3. Well, Leo was never the kind of guy there was never the kind of kid that, he was never really a scared child. He was never afraid of the dark. He never saw like, he didn't have imaginary friends. He didn't see imaginary things. This is kind of like, there's a certain point in our childhood, which most of us, and it's usually something we see on, I think, a movie or something that, our sense of fear is awakened. You know what I mean? He had never had that yet. So, he no problem sleeping in his room or anything. He was not afraid of the dark. But I kind of am afraid of the dark. And so I was excited to go shoot The Conjuring, but I was, a little scared because you hear stories about like, was this set haunted? I mean, they bring in a priest on the first day to bless the set, right? So, so I just, the day before I left, I went into our room because Leo was sleeping with us at that time. And I said a little, like, I guess you could say I said a little prayer and asked, like, Leo's spirit guides, to come protect while I was gone shooting, so I did that. And that night I flew to Atlanta to shoot The Conjuring. And like I was asleep in my hotel room in Atlanta. I get a call from Veronica and she's like, oh my God. I'm like, what? And she says, we were about to go to sleep, because Leo was sleeping in our bed at that time. And he said, Leo turned to Veronica, my wife, and said, Mommy, who are those people right there? And Veronica said, who? She goes, the people beside the bed. And I said, and Veronica said, oh, I don't know, sweetheart. I don't see anyone. Who do you see? And then Leo said, I see a little boy, a little girl, and a man. Right? Now, again, so it freaked her out. She went into the living room and she called me and told me this. Now, obviously, this could all just be a weird coincidence, but it is worth noting that Leo had never seen imaginary things. You know what I mean? That's part of his imagination had never been like, it just hadn't been stoked yet. So I thought that it was at the very least wildly coincidental that I had, like the day before, prayed for spirit guides to come protect them while I was shooting in Atlanta. And then that night, you know, she called and said Leo had said this, and he's been, you know, ever since then. It's like it's hard for him to sleep in his bed. He scares easy. You know what I mean? So, and I remember when I was a kid, man, I was terrified. I was always terrified of the dark, of ghosts, of, you know what I mean? And I know it's probably because my you know, my parents were letting me watch like HBO at like, you know, 5, and I was watching things like The Car or Damien or The Exorcist, like things that I probably shouldn't have been watching, you know.
Well, I was actually going to ask you if there was any strange happenings or anything on the set, because there's something about the Conjuring films. I'm sure you'll agree with me. There's an air of authenticity about them. If you really let them in, there's an air of authenticity that between what happens with the characters. I'm sure it's because Lorraine Warren consulted on the movie.
Yep. I think that's what's so beautiful about The Conjuring. Okay, even if you just look at like the definition of conjuring, you know, it can take on so many different meanings. Just the word. Maybe you're actually conjuring up something, you know, something supernatural or demonic, or, you know, even if it's something you're conjuring up in your mind, which is stemming from some sort of, you know, like temporary mental illness or something, you know, it's equally as terrifying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as far as anything that happened on set, I know that they blessed the set on day one. You know, they have a priest that comes to bless the set, and I had heard whisperings of some weird things that had happened. I mean, it seems from what this is kind of secondhand anecdotal evidence, or anecdotal stories, but I think Vera has had a few things happen to her, you know, in the first ones, you know, but you know, from my perspective, what happened, you know, to me and Leo and Veronica at home was pretty strange, you know. Yeah. But man, I went out full. I went out there like wearing like crosses, and like I was like, you know, I was kind of like just trying to protect myself against the dark forces. You know, I guess you could say I'm a little superstitious or whatever, but hey, it's, you know, better safe than sorry, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Speaking of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the wonderful actors who play them are Wilson and Vera Farmiga, who do a great job in both of the original films. What was it like to work with these two actors?
Well, I didn't work with either one of them directly. I did meet them, and they're lovely people. But the bulk of my work was with Rory and Sarah Catherine. I wish I would have worked with them directly, but you know, and I haven't seen the film, by the way. I'm kind of excited and waiting to see it along with everyone else. So yeah, I'm gonna see it in the theaters. You know, we're not doing a premiere. You know, still, I think just playing it safe. You know, I don't even know. I think most people aren't doing the premieres. I think a couple have, but you know, but I don't know. I'm excited to see it. But no, I didn't work with them directly. But I met them, and they're lovely people.
Okay. So yeah. How did you get this part? What was the audition process like?
I came in as an audition, you know, and I just put myself on tape, and you know, I always look to see if you know, if I know anyone involved, and you know, I knew some people involved. So as soon as you know, if I know someone involved, you know, and I feel like it's not too pushy, or you know, after I put the audition on tape, I might make a call or shoot off an email and say, hey, just be on the lookout for this tape I did. I think it's pretty good, and thankfully, you know, Michael Chaves, the director, was hip to it, and he liked me, and he hired me. And I can't say enough good things about Michael Chaves, the director. He's he's one of my favorite types of director in that he's a film fanatic, you know. The only like he reminds me a lot of Eli Roth, you know, and 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 that you can tell that they became directors because they were such fanatical fans that they're such fanatical fans that their inclination to become writers, directors, filmmakers was this need to be more of an active participant in this medium that they were so in love with. And Chavs kind of falls right in line with that. I mean, he just loves films. He's so excited. He's so enthusiastic. And that's I feel like that gets you, that enthusiasm and love gets you it gets you so far, you know, because you know, and I had that love, you know. I don't there's there's no such thing as too long of a day for me on set, you know. It's just it's something that I just the hours go by, and it's something I love so much. So that when you're being directed by someone who has that enthusiasm, it's just infectious, and then and it inspires this like this desire to get in there and dig in and just push yourself to create something special, you know.
Were there any challenges with regards to your character, or any particularly hard shooting days, or any scenes that were more difficult to pull off than others?
I want to be careful to answer that because I don't want to give away anything.
Okay. So I
but
think the supernatural scenes might have been an intense thing to film.
you know, but not so much challenging stuff. Just like you know, it was Georgia in the middle of the summer, you know. And yeah, those extreme emotions are always going to be hard because you just can't half-ass it. So you're if you're committing to something and you know you're going to be shooting it for hours, it can be pretty exhausting. But I mean, listen, it's all just getting out there and doing what we love. So you know, at the end of the day, it ain't that hard, you know. But I would say it wasn't hard. You know, we shot this movie a while back ago, and we were supposed to have a release date last year, you know, and then they wanted to do some reshoots, you know. So we did reshoots but it was almost this June 4th date in 2 weeks is kind of it's almost a year past when it was originally going to be distributed, you know.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, obviously, you know, they wanted to have the theaters up and running, which, you know, thankfully we do, you know, and hopefully the box office isn't too affected.
Michael Chavez has some big shoes to fill because he's taken over for James Wan as director.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did James Wan have any input on set?
Oh yeah, James is there. He's definitely a collaborator with Chavs and Michael Burgess, the DP, and Peter Safran, and you know, they're always vibing on the same goal of, you know, what's going to be the scariest thing, you know. Of course, with full respect being paid, you know, with Chavs, you know, Michael Chavs is the director, you know, but everything has to. But there are certain aspects of every film that kind of have to fall within a framework of the overall franchise, you know. So maybe they want to, you know, bring back a specific ghost or something that's been in you know, another movie. You know what I mean? There's certain things, and there's just certain, you know, there's certain elements that have to fall within a framework of it being, you know, number 8, the number 8 film in an overall Conjuring universe, you know.
Yeah.
But from what I saw, you know, and I wasn't, you know, I have a pretty cool part. I haven't seen the final. I haven't seen the final thing, so I don't know what was cut and what wasn't. My character is pretty integral, you know, and you know, you could kind of determine that from looking at some of the trailers, but without me giving anything away. But from what I did see, it seemed like a pretty inspiring collaboration amongst Chavs and the guys from New Line and and James Wan, so I hear good things, man. I hear it's cool. I hear it's also not like it's kind of a thing of its own, because they're getting out of they're kind of breaking the haunted house structure,
Yeah,
so
I knew Michael had to really connect with James Wan in order to get that gig. So
yeah.
they must really have a nice collaboration.
Well, yeah, and Charles had made Curse of La Llorona, which I thought was great, by the way, and my wife thought it was terrifying, yeah, and Michael Charles, he's just I can't say enough about this guy, man. He's just so much fun. You know what I mean? It's like think of like a 12-year-old film nerd making a movie. But he's a grown man with kids, but he never lost that spirit,
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's infectious, man. It's because not all directors are like that, man. Some directors are just they're kind of bummers, and they're like, and they almost act like they act like they don't want to be there,
Um,
but with him, it's like, he's just so excited, man. He's like a kid. I think that on some level it's a fictionalized story that's based on these true events, which is probably always the best way to frame something, or just the best way to execute something like this, because then you're not beholden to none of us were there. Well, some of the advisors were there, because I think Debbie Glatzel was on set. But like if you kind of just come out and execute it from a point of, we're going to do our best to tell a fictionalized version of something that really happened, then you can take the moments that really happened and add moments that might not have happened. I understand that I'm kind of riffing on what your question was, but yes, I think he did do that, and his enthusiasm did take the edge off that. And I think a little bit of that is necessary, because you don't want to get too caught up in the darkness of the subject matter. Mm-hmm. All that matters is what's on screen. You know what I mean? So if you can find some levity in and around those takes, then that's probably the best for everyone's mental health.
Did you get to meet Lorraine Warren before she died in 2019? Did she get to consult on the movie at all? No.
I imagine she did, but I did not meet her.
Okay.
I did not meet her. I think that was right around the time when we shot, so she might have just passed when I had gone out there. But I'm a fan, man. I'm like always looking up their videos, and it's just so wild, Vera is so good. Again, I didn't work with them, but I just know, because again, not only was I on set and met them, but I'm also a fan, so I'm always looking at YouTube videos and whatnot. But they take both Patrick and Vera take the legacy of that couple very seriously, Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the real Warrens, God rest her soul, and then of both Patrick and Vera's depiction of the real Warrens. I definitely getting the vibe from the trailer that there might be a kind of this love story aspect. I mean, they stayed together for many, many decades. Mm-hmm. Did they eventually shut down that? Is that museum still open?
Yes, I believe it's still.
Did they ever move it from their basement?
That I could not answer you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
Man.
you?
I believe it's still there right now.
It's still
Man,
there.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
like, why would you want to keep that in your basement?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
know?
money being made off of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Did you hear that there's some story about the guy who like took the Annabelle doll and was gonna do something with it like the last couple of years, and then he got in a car wreck on the way home. Like, there's always some weird story, man. Just
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you think they'll make another one?
Probably. I think
They have to, right? Yeah.
this is kind of, I feel like the Conjuring universe at this point, the equivalent to like a superhero franchise, the way that you have like the Marvel and the DC universe. This is like the horror universe. So I imagine they're going to try to explore it as much as possible, whether it's the Conjuring films or the Annabelle films or any kind of spin-offs that they can get out of it.
From my perspective, when they did Conjuring 1, they broke the mold. It kind of kicked the whole genre in the ass, you know. And the way they were able to do that just with like mostly practical effects, you know, it's pretty brilliant. You know, James Wan's a pretty brilliant guy. Sometimes, like when you're shooting with limitations, it creates you. It allow. I mean, you guys know. You know.
Yeah.
You guys learn from Pay Up. You know, you make a movie. You have limitations, and it forces you to be creative. And sometimes the gold that you get from those limitations is far more interesting than if you had like unlimited resources. You know. So the fact that they were able to like they kind of had a little bit of the best of both worlds is I think it makes for some real legendary cinema, you know.
We do have a history with Ronnie. He actually assisted us on the film Michael Pickle wrote and directed, Pay Up, that I produced, and it's trying to get distribution right now. But he helped us out on set. He did some extra camera work.
I thought you guys did a great job with that, by the way. And I was happy to that was so much fun to be involved with. And you know, you guys did a good job of kind of striking that balance of like not taking yourself too seriously, but you know, it's you know, it's cool, man. It's great. What are you guys gonna do next?
We're actually working on a script right now. We is some pretty big studios are involved in it. Like there was one guy that came in as an extra on the set one day. He's a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
So he was pitching around his TV show of his, and people kept telling him, "Oh, horror's big right now. We want a movie." So he was like, "Oh, I just worked with a horror director. Let me ask him." So we kind of collaborated together, and James and I got together and wrote the script just recently. So it's looking like it's going to have the biggest budget of my career, and
Great.
a huge kill count. It's a brutal horror film. It's supernatural.
Good, man.
So
good.
We're excited about that.
Good.
Yeah, we're here for you, but I just want to say I think it's going to be. I think the script is layered. I think that it's going to be a very brutal horror movie, but I think that there's the way that we've organized it. There's a lot more going on under the surface of this film. I feel like there's going to be a lot of things to discuss and analyze, and likely we can't give away too much. Give away too much, but
yeah, man, that's exciting, man.
It's
Congratulations.
Exciting script. So if we can get involved in some way,
cool, man.
That would be awesome.
Great, man. Cool. Well, congratulations, man. That's I'm fans of you guys. So
thank you so much.
Yeah,
we're big fans of you as well.
Yeah,
right on, man.
So I needed to get to this because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I need to get to this for the audience. You were on Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yeah.
David Lynch and Naomi Watts. And I talked to you about this before. That is literally my favorite of anything of the last 20 years, whether it's a movie or a film. I'm a huge fan of that series, particularly Twin Peaks: The Return. How did you get to work with David Lynch, and what was it like to work with him on set?
It was great. David Lynch has never auditioned an actor. Okay. David Lynch has his casting director calls you in, turns on the camera and asks you questions. Sometimes it'll be like, tell a story, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. I told a story. I don't even remember the story I told. I think if I'm, and this, I don't have this confirmed, but like, I did a film called Uncle John with Stephen Pyatt and Eric Crary. And Eric Crary worked for a long time for David Lynch. So at that time, inside of the year when they were casting Twin Peaks, David Lynch had seen Uncle John that Eric Crary, his former assistant, had made. It was a great movie. It went to Sundance. It kind of put these guys on, or I'm sorry, it went to South by Southwest. It put these guys on the map. And David Lynch offered up a quote for the movie, like for the, like a quote. And he was very much a fan. So if I'm guessing, I would imagine that, when he was watching the tapes from the Twin Peaks audition, that he probably either consciously or subconsciously recognized me from the movie Uncle John, and that had something to do with me being at Twin Peaks. But it's great that you don't have to audition for David Lynch. That's pretty cool. I mean, and it's great that David Lynch is iconic. I mean, David Lynch he's everything, man. He's provocative. He's weird. He's just his movies are poems, man. They're wild. They're crazy. And I'm a fan. I've always been a fan. Him on set was fantastic. Because he really directed. We were doing it. We did a scene. It was me, Jeremy Davies, and Naomi Watts. And man, he goes after it. He gets in there and he directs. Man, he has a heavy perspective, and he's not afraid to say it. And it was a total thrill working with him. And then, and that was cool. And we went to the rap party, and, he's just a special guy, a special guy. I had this rap party, and then me and Veronica going up there and meeting him and Harry Dean Stanton, like right before he passed. And it's just, it kind of feels like you're a part of old Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, man, he's cool.
And a very iconic property right there.
What?
Twin Peaks, that's a very iconic property.
Oh man, totally just wild. And all the stars that were born up out of it. I recently I produced and starred in a film with Laura Flynn Boyle, and she had so many great stories. I mean, she just, it just that's just one of the cool things about being in this business is just, it's just like working with these people that, like, it's like you always dreamed of, you know what I mean? You're hanging out, you're in acting class, you're on the peripheral, and and then one day you're just like kind of just hanging out and becoming friends with and working with these people that at any given time you could just drop, the cool act and just totally fan out. And like 80% of the time I do, so, but that's, I honestly, I think that's kind of what inspires people. It's the same thing that inspires me about directors like Eli Roth and Michael Chaves. Mm-hmm. People want to be inspired, and very little inspires people the way enthusiasm does. Mm. So God, I get real tangential on these questions, I think. But I think David Lynch has that same kind of enthusiasm. Is probably what my point is. That's just another. Twin Peaks was just another super cool thing that I've been a part of. That kind of just makes me perpetually grateful for whatever reason that I'm able to kind of go out there and do cool shit every now and again, you know?
Yeah, you've worked with a lot of heavy hitters besides Lynch. Like we mentioned before, you worked with Christopher Nolan on Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. Yeah.
With
Great.
David Gordon Green and Nicolas Cage on Joe.
Yeah.
With Eli Roth and Bruce Willis on Death Wish. So one of your, I believe it was your first part. You had a bit part on AI, artificial intelligence. Did you get to work with Spielberg or Kubrick on that one?
No, I was cut out of that. I was kind of
you were.
Yeah. But that was another great movie, though. You know what I watched the other night? Like, I said I had never watched it, and I watched it like at midnight, and I had to work the next morning. Was Clockwork Orange, and dude, that like blew my mind wide open. Like, whoa, what a film! Like, I can't believe it's taken me this long to watch, but it's like Shakespeare.
That was your first time seeing a Clockwork Orange?
Yeah.
Oh,
what a trip! Talk about a movie that's totally bizarre, totally plot driven, but it's dealing with like so much social commentary and like visual metaphors, and like I can't wait to revisit that over and over again. You know,
most Stanley Kubrick films, like I kind of compare Stanley Kubrick to David Lynch. They both make these films that you could revisit over and over and find new meaning, new things.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the best type of like storytelling? That kind of like, who wants something just everything spelled out? I mean, listen, there's a time and place for plot driven. You know, listen, I like plot, but I think the best cinema is operating on a couple of different levels. You know, they're giving you a plot to follow, which is engaging you, and then they're also giving you some beautiful like visual metaphors and some imagery, and also not force feeding you. You know, like let's let the audience figure some shit out as well. You know. I was doing this Q&A with Nick Cage, and they asked him this question about like something or the other, like what was this? What was this, that, the other? Or maybe it was like, there's a scene in Joe when like he pulls up and he sees a woman in a car, and then the woman kind of looks at him and kind of looks away, and you know it doesn't say what that moment's about, but it certainly, so someone was asking like, well, who was that? Was that like an ex-lover? Which is definitely kind of what they were setting it up to be, but they never told you what it was, and I think that's great storytelling. And what Nick said was, well, what do you think it was? Because whatever you think whatever you imagine it to be is far more interesting than than me telling you what it was. It's like the briefcase in Tarantino, like it was like the most talked about, and what Pulp Fiction, I don't know what I said, but it was the most talked about thing ever, and everyone had an explanation. Mm-hmm. I mean, if Tarantino, but a more an insecure filmmaker might be inclined to, we have to explain that moment, but you don't have to explain the moment. That's one of the cool things about cinema. It's like, choose your own adventure. So yeah.
So do you have any upcoming projects that you can talk about?
Well, Conjuring is coming out June 4th. Obviously, Death Wish is another film that I produced and starred in, coming out June 4th as well. I'm very proud of that. And then a film I did, Feral State, comes out May 28th. Those are all going to be like on demand. And then, of course, Conjuring will be in theaters and HBO Max. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But we encourage everyone to go to the theater and see it before you check it out on HBO Max.
Absolutely. I mean, that, yeah. Well, that would be something if it could just, yeah. I mean, that's the first movie I'm going to see coming back. That's not true. We went to see the what is that middle-aged, like, Nick Cage voices the father Croods. Is that what it's called?
Oh, the Croods, yeah.
We saw the Croods too a few months ago, but this will be like my first time back in like a theater, and like a that'll be like, you know, operating at full capacity, you know. So I'm excited, man. I'm very grateful, you know.
Yeah, the Conjuring films are made for the theater experience for sure.
I think so. Yeah.
Horror, in my view, horror works best with an interactive audience. You feel when you have a room full of people who are scared or jumping at the same time. Not that you don't get scared when you're watching movies at home. Of course, that could happen, but there's something a little bit more magical about the theatrical experience and the communal quality of it.
Yeah, especially with the Conjuring films, because sound design is such a part of it. So I can't wait. I'm gonna be out here, you know. So I'm gonna go to like the one theater in town that has it, and I'm gonna see it along everyone else, you know. Excited.
I wanted to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on. I know you're pretty busy right now. You're working on a film right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm working on a film in Florida called Playing Through, about the first about Anne Gregory, who's the first African American woman to ever compete professionally and to win a major championship. And it's, you know, I can't say too much about it, but the cast is great, the aesthetic is great. Our fearless leader and director Balbinka is phenomenal, and we're a weekend, and it looks beautiful, and it seems like we're making something that that's really like classically great. So I'm as always, I'm optimistic, and I'm like, you know, I'm buying in on the dream of what it can be, because I think you have to, you know, whatever you're working on, you got to, you know, whatever you're currently working on, you have to execute like you're making the next best thing. And from everything, all the evidence that I am seeing being out here, it's pretty cool. It's pretty great. And I'm, you know, as always, I'm just honored to be included, and just want to, you know, just want to do my part and serving the story. So
congratulations on your awesome career. I think you're an excellent character actor, and I love seeing you in bigger and bigger roles. And we're really looking forward to the new Conjuring coming out June 4th.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you both, man. I had so much fun doing this. I really did.
All right, perfect. We got to have you back sometime.
Anytime,
Yeah.
brother.
All right.
Yeah, we got lots more questions for you.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your shoot.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Bye, guys.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Ronnie Blevins, a good friend of ours, somebody who has a wonderful career already as a character actor, and hopefully has a lot of great work ahead of him, especially after especially after a significant role in such a high-profile film like New Conjuring. Stay tuned to us. We'll keep you updated on everything we're doing, including our films, the projects that we're working on, any interviews we got coming up. Follow us on our Flow page, which we'll have a link to in the podcast description. That'll take you to everywhere we're available, whether you want to watch us on YouTube, or if you prefer to hear your podcast in the form of audio on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud, coming soon to Anchor and other platforms.
And check out Ronnie Gene Blevins in The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, coming out June 4th. It's going to be simultaneously on HBO Max and in theaters. Can't wait for that one.
Till next week, folks. Happy horror.
Happy horror.